Welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
Gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Why, hey there. Welcome back. Welcome to episode 178 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you for joining me again today. I really do appreciate you making my podcast one of your choices to listen into. I know that I have a lot of competition out there, but I really do appreciate you making my podcast one of the ones that you lend your ears to. If you are enjoying this podcast, I would love to get to know you a little bit more. So if you could take a screenshot of you listening to this episode and share it on your socials and tag me at Jen Donovan _ I would be so super cool with that and would love to follow you and cheer you on social media as well, especially Instagram. I guess that is a great platform for sharing screenshots and tagging people. So would love to see that. Before I forget, the show notes for this podcast can be found at all the W's socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/178. So before we get into this week's episode, to which I have a great guest for you to listen to, mind you, who has some amazing advice. But before we get into that, I just wanted to ask you, do sometimes you want someone just to look over your marketing, whether it's online marketing or offline marketing, to see whether, it's working, to see whether you need to be more strategic or see whether you need to post more or post differently or post less. Perhaps you've been on Facebook and Instagram for years, but you're like, am I doing it right? Or maybe you could do with some tweaks when it comes to your email marketing, or in fact, your website that you built a little while ago and you've really done nothing with or haven't been back to check to see whether it is doing you and your business and your brand justice. Well, fabulous news just is that I've opened up my audits again for 2022, which basically means that we have a chat about your goals and what platforms you're on and what you want your marketing to achieve in 2022. And then I take all that information away and I do an audit on your social media platforms, perhaps your website if you would like that done, and even your email marketing strategy as well if you would like that done. I put it all into a report that gives you, some tips and some tricks and, a bit of strategy, and let you know what you're doing really well and perhaps what you could improve strategically. And I pass it over to you. So that's how I do an audit. They are just brilliant for putting you back on the track that you want to be, to make sure that your goals are going to be achieved in 2022 via your marketing. So if you are interested in getting me to do an audit on your marketing, on your social media channels or your website or anything like that, then now is the time to book in. I don't open them all the time, but they are open at the moment because they take quite a few hours to do. I don't like to have an enormous amount to do, but there are definitely spaces at the moment. You can book your audit at bit.ly, so bit.ly/audit-with-Jen. Of course, Jen has 2 N's. Or of course, like I said before, head to the show notes at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/178 and find it there as well. So if you need some help, I would love to be the person to help you with your audit. Okay, so like I said before, I have a really cool guest for you this week. Her name is Serena Ryan, and she actually has 2 businesses. One is Serena.Ryan and the other is Dotterize.com. Basically, Serena is an e-commerce specialist and she's actually also a certified Shopify partner. I'm super excited to chat to her all about e-commerce. So obviously I have the social media and marketing business that I run, which is very much service-based businesses and helping, both service-based and e-commerce. But I also have a whole e-commerce platform myself, being spendwithus.com.au. So I was really interested to talk to Serena, and I also wanted her to share some of her nuggets of gold with you as well. If you are a service-based business, please don't press stop and move on. Serena's advice and her views and views on trends and how they are going to impact the business world will actually affect you as well. So I would invite you to stick around for this episode and listen to Serena. But anyway, let's get into it. Let's have a bit of a chat with Serena. Serena, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Jen. I really appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, no way. So we did the Oz Mumpreneur Awards together. So that's how we met. So, but for my audience who perhaps don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, I am known as Serena.Ryan, and where that comes from, my middle name's Dorothy, hence the dot.
Ah, okay. So it wasn't just because Serena Ryan wasn't available.
Exactly. It was so I could cheesily say my middle name is Digital.
Love it.
Grandmother. Yeah, so it's one of those things. I never thought I'd run my own business. And it wasn't until I became a mum and my son was 5 months old and I was due to return to work. And I went in to negotiate how that would look. And in that meeting, I was told essentially for the role I had, and I was as a director in a large advertising agency doing digital marketing. I was told for that level of role, they didn't really have flexibility. And really the best thing for me was to get a nanny if I wanted to stay in that role.
Oh, that wouldn't fly these days, would it?
Well, it's interesting. I got to understand how, whilst things have moved forward quite a bit with regards to women in the workforce and having children and flexibility, certain roles, they don't allow flexibility. And that is something that some companies will hold on to, and they're legally within their rights to do so. So a lot of education on my part that I never really expected. And I never really wanted to run my own business. I can even say that quite openly and scarily now, 7 years later. It's funny what happens. Within 48 hours of being told to pretty much get a nanny, I'd resigned and I'd moved home with my parents with my husband and baby in tow. And the week I did that, that was like an hour out of the city where I was living in the city, I got pregnant with number 2.
Oh,
It's a daisy. It's like, whoopsie. Didn't expect that. You go, well, moving on. 2 kids, and really was determined to work because I like to say I'm a mature mum, and I'd had more than 20 years experience working, and I wanted to use my skills but didn't know how to use them in working for myself because I wanted flexibility.
Yeah.
And so I just started. I registered my name because I thought that would be pretty cool. My experience was in digital marketing, hence Serena.Ryan, and started just helping out businesses, basically anyone that would stand still long enough to talk about digital marketing. And that was it. I realized I have this knack for loving to talk about it because I love seeing the capability of it to it basically transforms people's lives. And it's such an exciting thing to see when you can see that light bulb in someone's head when they go, I didn't realize if I did that, I could get clients or I could get money that way. And I'm like, you can do it. And it's been a really interesting journey. As I said, I ended up with 2 kids under 2 and living with my parents. I thought I really want to earn money. And with clients, consulting, I found myself go to a conference. It's like a short part to this. And at that conference, it was with other women who were running businesses. I had this aha moment because the kids were still under 2. I've gone, I'm not just doing this. It was actually really hard for me to get someone to look after the kids for me to be there. Mm-hmm. This is not a hobby for me. This is actually, I've got a pretty good skill set here that I've accumulated a lot of work hours on, go hard at this. Don't just dabble in it. And, you know, I thought, where can I go? What can I do to actually stand out from the crowd and actually fully show and use my skill set? Because it's something, as you would know, Jen, it's digital marketing and social media and all that entails doesn't stand still. So I can say I've got all this experience, right? But it's not going to stay relevant if I don't keep learning.
Yeah. There's one thing about digital marketers, they are lifelong learners.
Yeah. And so anyway, I turned up at this conference with business mums, and I thought, I'm looking around at this room going, I need to just not get too caught up in myself feeling like I'm not a business person. I need to take this serious. And where's the best possible place for me to get learning and build connections? And 3 months later, instead of going from, the suburbs of Sydney to Melbourne for that conference with business mums, I found myself in San Diego. And that was the social media marketing world. Kids still, I flew my mother-in-law in from Port Macquarie to help with the kids.
Oh, wow.
She's a legend, I have to say. Special shout out to Judy. She's just, it does take a team to be able to do what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I found myself there, and I don't know if you've had that burning, passion inside you, go, I'm doing this. This is not about passively learning. As you know, with if you invest your time is money. You are going to take action with everything you're learning. And I made some incredible contacts there, and that set me up to do, Facebook ads specifically at the time, and get all in on connecting them with all parts of the digital presence to grow businesses. And I have an incredible mentor in Dennis Yu, who actually helps me with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really an interesting place that got me to that. And then look at, whilst I love doing ads, I love even more seeing online presences grow. And my corporate experience before I stepped into my own presence, if that's the word, as Serena.Ryan, was looking after product-based businesses. So in 7 years, I ended up with 2 businesses.
Yeah, okay. So it was probably the product-based businesses that we've chatted about, and the fact that you are an official Shopify partner, are they
Correct.
the right words? Yeah.
Yes.
That sort of caught my eye to sort of get you on to the podcast to have a bit of a chat about e-commerce. We are probably coming up to the season, that December, January of e-commerce heaven, where, and I think the landscape probably looks a little bit different to what it has in the past, because, we have caught up to the rest of the world as far as e-commerce goes and being online shoppers. What have you seen perhaps in the last 18 months or so, even, from your clients or just general with e-commerce and the uptake of that?
It's a really interesting time in e-commerce, because there's been a major disruption in the world with a pandemic happening, and how that's actually impacted people's shopping behavior. And what I've noticed, trends holistically, but then also specifically to the clients I work with, have been this level of comfort of being able to do things online and to embrace technology a lot more holistically than previous. I saw a great meme that kind of summed it up. It's like days, we no longer looking at days of the week. We look at days where days I get a delivery and days I don't get a delivery.
Yeah. What was my favorite one is, I've ordered so much online. Look, if the llama turns up tomorrow, I'll be like, that's okay. I probably ordered it.
Yeah. Look, we've had moments home here, it's a full house, and it's been, okay, is that your box or mine? Did you order that? What did you order?
Absolutely. So a lot of my audience, I suppose some of my audience is e-commerce, some of them are service-based businesses, But really, if we kind of have a bit of a chat about e-commerce, sorry for my service-based businesses, but keep listening. I'm sure there are some tips and tricks in here for you as well. But where do people start? Like if they have a product or they're a well-seasoned business owner, but just haven't embraced the e-commerce side, like where would you encourage people to start or to look at when starting to look to come to an e-commerce platform?
Well, it's a really it's an interesting thing to look at, because when you decide to go online, it's not as straightforward as being one dimensional and saying, okay, today I've decided I'm going to do it, I'm going to go there. If we were looking at that, that would be e-commerce going back close to 20 years ago now, when people just put brochures on their site and they could start to sell that way and have a PayPal link. Where we're at now is consumers are a lot more savvy, and they have an expectation of being able to make things easy. So, and decision fatigue is a real thing. Like we don't make people keep to making more decisions, because you'll slow down the purchase process. You want to make it as easy and straightforward as possible. If you're a business looking at going online, or you're already there and you wish you'd get more sales or improve your conversion rate, what I'd recommend you do is put yourself in your customer's shoes, or sit with someone. Like something I like doing when I'm auditing a client, like auditing a site for a potential client. I get my 9-year-old to have a look at the site and I say, what do you think of this? Like, what is it? I get him to describe it to me, because he's like, if he can't figure out what's there, we should be looking at things through eyes that we would not expect. And commonly we're in our own shoes, pushing our message out to the world, instead of trying to turn it around and go, well, how am I solving someone's problem? Or how am I making it so ridiculously easy for them to find what I am and what I do? Because if you can't upfront show how clearly you solve their problem, you've already lost them before they even go to purchase.
You are so singing my songs here. Absolutely. In fact, I call it the mother-in-law theory. You know, if your mother-in-law, well, actually, my mother-in-law is actually quite tech savvy. So might not work with her. We might go with the 5-year-old, but you know, it's like you need to get someone to look at your site who isn't you and perhaps isn't even a business owner. It always astounds me the amount of people and e-commerce, but also service-based businesses that put up these websites, invest sometimes thousands of dollars into them, but they never actually go and use them themselves, you know, to see what the experience is like from the other end, from the other spectrum, which is what I see as one of the biggest mistakes people make. What's some of the biggest mistakes you see people make from an e-commerce point of view when they're trying to go online, or maybe they are online but still making the mistakes?
Not looking at their website on a mobile device.
Oh, yes.
They need to get it, and particularly when they're building it with a web developer. When the link comes through from the web developer, look at it on a mobile device.
And several too, because
Correct.
you've got Android, you've got iPhones, you've got old-fashioned iPhones, you've got new ones.
And it's also being aware of what browser you're on when you're looking at that too, because different browsers render differently. When back in sort of my corporate world days, we had a department of testing. So we'd have testing devices, testing machines, and simulators. So you'd actually look at it through all different ones. Now, in the reality of what we do now, that's not practical, particularly for small businesses to do that. So what we've got to look at separate to that is a lot of that testing is done. Like I get asked, why would I choose Shopify versus a different platform for a website? And it's quite simply, they are doing the best. They're doing a lot more of that platform testing and usability testing across devices, so that end users, when I say end users, business owners, don't have to do that. So I'm talking from a coding functionality side of things. Shopify is set up so that the baseline that you're building on is already optimized for e-commerce. whereas you've got to put a lot more time and energy into it when it's not got that baseline created for you. And it just means that that initial cost, which can be hard for some to get together to go and, work with a developer on a different platform, it becomes a lower entry cost for you to actually get your website up and running. But what I see a big mistake if people go into using Shopify is they don't apply that due diligence to make sure they're not putting too many third-party apps onto their site. And if they put too many third-party apps on, they often can cost a lot more because it's a hidden cost because you've got to pay for the apps. And too many apps on your site slow your site down. And site speed, as you know, Jen, it's one of the killers of SEO, because we need to have our site speed up for SEO visibility. It's not just about keywords.
No, Google does not like you if you are a slow loading website. You are very heavily penalized.
And you're right. And if we take it right back to where I started saying things today, it's if we're looking at it on a mobile device, who's going to sit there with something loading slowly on their mobile device? I'm not.
Yeah.
No one, not their ideal customers aren't either.
No. We are a very fickle world. We want everything and we want it now and we want it fast. So keeping that in mind with just about everything you do in digital marketing will keep you well versed. How do you find, and I'm not quite sure if this is a question that you can answer or not, but of course we have bigger platforms such as Facebook and Instagram that are going down the e-coms sort of route. The, Facebook shop, Instagram shop. How do they fare versus having your own platform on something like Shopify or an open source like WooCommerce or something like that? Again, we're looking at people who have to make these decisions as to where they're going to put their products.
I look at it as the way people are out in the world now. If you look at shopper habits, is we're omni-channel. And omni-channel means that we are going to be experiencing the world in fragments all over the place. We are going to go in person to stores. We are going to go and Google things. We are going to be on social media. We are going to pick up a flat pamphlet at an expo. We are going to a barbecue with our mates on the weekend. We are going to be exposed in all different ways. We're going to drive past a billboard when we're driving to Melbourne from Sydney. It's going to be many, many ways we're bombarded with messages. When we have that level of experience, we should not be sitting in one platform. And Shopify integrates, like once you've got your shop, you can put your shop in, it integrates into Facebook, into Instagram, into TikTok, into Pinterest. It takes your channels into Google, and you can have a buy button, and that buy button can be put onto another person's blog, and that sale will come through into your shop on Shopify. Shopify have their own app called Shop, and in Shop you can sell and do promotional offers. It becomes another channel in the channels. Shopify have point of sale, so you have got physical point of sale that would replace using Stripe. Shopify they're doing what they can to also go into the payments sector as well. They're looking at what they can do to look at the entire experience and look at the omni-channel approach as opposed to looking at things as a singular channel.
Yeah, I love that. So in marketing, we kind of talk about touch points and how many touch points it takes to create the sale, that you can't just, rely on one channel. And that's exactly what you're saying here is, you might have only one of that product to sell or, a certain amount of lines, but it's putting not all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And the beauty of that, if you can have that complete omni-channel approach, it also enables when if a system goes down for a couple of days, like it may have done in the last couple of weeks, rather large one of those channels disappears. You're not feeling the impact as much as you could have if you had that omni-channel approach. And you don't have to be on Shopify. For anyone listening here who's going, we have to be on Shopify. It's about having the awareness that whether you think you are or not, every business is omni-channel. And we have to be considering, like this morning I was talking to clients about their PR launch with their site. And yes, I am working on their website for them. Yes, we are talking about how that's integrating, but we're looking at the correct spelling for the flyers for the PR event, matching the spelling that's being on the website. Because you've got to think people are not going to pick up a flyer and not look at the website and go to the website. We have to go all the way through. And then when they're on the website, when they purchase, what about the email communication after that? And what is their experience they're going to go tell their friends about after they've dealt with you?
Yeah. And I think like the user experience, like when you were talking omni-channels, that was my next question, was kind of around how do you get small business owners who are busy being busy and have so much on their plate to step back and take a look at their brand and their business from their customers' point of view?
It's about letting them see the importance of doing it. How badly do they want to be in business and stay in business? They need to prioritize understanding how to look after their customer, because it's much easier if they keep customers than it is to go out and get new ones in the door.
Yeah.
And if they look after the ones they have, those ones that they have will do their marketing for them.
Yeah. And it's so competitive that if your channels are too hard or too slow or too complicated, there are other people who do what you do. And, you know, us frickle humans and consumers will just move on.
Yes. And everything I talk about, I apply to myself. I am very heavily booked at the moment, and I keep a very lean team. And I look at my social media at the moment for Dotterized, which is the Shopify business that I run. And I go, well, you know what? We don't need to do social media as much at the moment. I'm okay with that, because if I have to look at what time I pay for my business resources, I see the importance of looking after my existing client base as prioritizing that, because that's income and that's advocacy. And then them actually interacting with our social media posts is more valuable to me than it is for me to make sure I've got new content on mine going out all the time. Because whilst it's not about not doing social media, it's just looking at things differently to go, if I'm limited in time, where should I put my energy? And my energy's got to be on income producing first. And that means looking after clients. And like, if you have a business owner saying, oh, I don't know if we can do this, it's like, well, focus on looking after your customers, like wow your customers. It sounds like the more you can wow them, and then they go and leave a Google review or a Facebook review, or they go to one of your old posts and comment on, all it has to be is you're in contact with them. They go, you're amazing. Oh, thank you. That product was amazing. Go, oh, do you mind just popping on and giving us a review? They'll be like, oh, sure. That becomes your social media, instead of going on, do I need to get another post done, giving more facts out to people? Like, because that's a very broad approach. Think about what we could do that prioritizes that time to see the return on investment.
Yeah, absolutely. I do love that. Although not doing your marketing kind of, makes me squirm just a teeny tiny bit. But certainly, prioritizing the clients that you have, and thinking about that user experience. I've just been talking this morning quite a lot about Christmas marketing and the surprise and delight that we need to do to stand out from a crowded, noisy marketplace.
I love that you say that. I should clarify. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying, if you're time poor, look at it differently and say, well, actually, if I market one-to-one to this person in front of me, is that going to be more beneficial today, or paying someone to do that, as if it's a shop assistant or a physical business or a service-based business? Is that more valuable to me, or is it more valuable to get that social media post done? It's not saying don't do it at all. It's just going, if we're time poor, because I think as small business owners, I see, as I'm sure you do as well, Jen, you see the overwhelm. And you're like, how do you help them cut through the overwhelm to still be taking positive action in the right direction?
Yeah. Absolutely. I do. I do. I see it every day. Sometimes I even see it in myself.
I hear you there. I can see the mirror. I love how you say the surprise and delight, because you put words to exactly what I was saying so succinctly.
It's just so important. Like I said before, like if you don't service, if you aren't giving a good user experience, people will find someone else who will. So, we're loyalty is what we're trying to create, most
Yeah.
certainly online, and surprise and delighting your customers can go a long way to creating that loyalty.
And it's something I'd love to point out as well. Like I've seen people and they come to me to go, okay, I'm ready to grow my business. I'm ready to go take on the world. And you're like, okay, hang on a minute. If we can go, I want to go back and look at your process end to end of looking after your customer to see how we can make sure that that is a wow happening there before you scale. Because if we jump to doing the amplifying, we're going to potentially amplify what's not working as well. And we don't really want to amplify it if it's not quite surprising and delighting, or at least delighting more.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's a really good lesson for any business owner is, before you scale, like really do have a look at the systems and processes. I think that's a whole other story for a whole other podcast, most certainly. But yeah, I think that's such a great point. Finish the sentence for me, Serena. The future of e-commerce is
Bright.
bright.
Yeah. I see the positivity in it. I really feel like it's been a equal blessing and curse, the pandemic. Like I'm not someone who's, lived in a hot zone. So I've been in lockdown for a while this year. And at the same time, seeing en masse how people are responding positively to e-commerce, businesses who take the opportunity, who take the leap to be there, it's so incredibly bright. It's a joy to actually see people grow their businesses well by understanding it and actually moving forward with it. And when we talk about something like Shopify is valued as the most valuable company in Canada right now, because the amount of resources they've put into it and what they've done. Harley Finkelstein, he's I'll get his title right now, Shopify president. And I listened to a podcast on 6 Pixels with Mitch Joel. It was a brilliant podcast episode. And he talks about helping people with their businesses on the kitchen table and giving all the dedicated resources when you're overwhelmed. And fun fact for me, right? Back in my corporate days, client side before I went agency side, I was tasked with putting a e-commerce business into a business that typically sold products only into pharmacy and grocery. Traditionally, this was the early days of e-commerce.
Okay.
And in 18 months, I met with 105 different web development providers. And at the time, all I had was a sense of curiosity to put e-commerce in place. I learned all about open source, private enterprise, and these platforms like pre to Shopify. And what I realized was it actually didn't have as much to do with what the platform was, with what the intention was of what you wanted to do when you were online for your business. And we can get so overemphasized on the platform. A platform like Shopify, all it does is help remove decision fatigue, which is something that we're experiencing when you can procrastinate all you want on the platform. A platform that's dedicated to helping small businesses over the kitchen table helps you to get quicker back into your business instead of worrying about the mechanics of how the website is going to work.
Yep.
And it's an interesting, through that process of going through all those different platforms, I've gone, wow, you've got to just think about more what you want to sell, how you want to sell it, get it up there, and then regularly look at your analytics to say what's working or not and start tweaking what's going on. And Shopify give you a dedicated, simplified analytics, so you don't have to be a Google Analytics expert either.
That's a good thing to know. Good thing to know. I'd be really remiss to not speak to an e-commerce person about traffic, because once you've got your website up, it's running, you've got great products, great photography, great captions, very searchable keywords. How do you get traffic? And is traffic the number one thing that you need?
No, I have a principle I follow thanks to the lovely Dennis Yu, one of my incredible mentors, and it's called GCT, Goals Content Targeting. You've got to have clarity on what your business goal is and who your audience is that you want to reach.
Yes, you do.
Sorry?
Yes, you do.
You do. You have to know who that audience is. And then you need to have content that connects the two. That becomes goals equal content equal targeting. And if you don't have the right content for the right audience where they live, you're not going to achieve your business goal.
No.
And I have clients who have products that go from anything $20 to $20,000 as a unit of product, and selling that online, all on Shopify. The reality is the traffic that those websites get is vastly different. But if it's the right traffic, it doesn't matter if you're getting 10 people in a day, if that's converting.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so true. Like, you need qualified traffic, just not any traffic, which, I think that is a sticking point for people that I see as small business owners, that they put so much emphasis in choosing a platform, setting up their website, and they think that's the end.
It's just the beginning. And
yes.
You've really got to look at your website and go, hey, this is a living thing. Think of, and this is what Shopify help you do, is it helps you run your business. Like, I'm helping a client I met with this morning. We're setting up the inventory. We're setting up the sales channels. We're setting up the process for selling. We are giving Shopify is so much more than a website. It's a hub to do selling.
That's a very succinct way of looking at it.
And that's where I get joy out of it, because I can get, we talked about this before the podcast episode started. I could literally talk about anything, because I love to talk about the things I'm eternally curious about, really. And I love seeing the magic that happens when the right product or service is matched with the person. Like, it's so much more than selling a product. It's a matchmaking service.
Yeah, okay. I guess that, when I look at my business, it's just not about being a mentor or a coach. It's about building a community. So yes. Same sort of thing. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah. That's such a great way of looking at it. You've just got so many gems inside there, haven't you? I love it. Before we wrap up, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you would really like to put out there as a message for anyone who's listening, perhaps who's a business owner, but perhaps who's more down the e-commerce side?
Yeah, look, don't be afraid to start. I see a lot of people hesitating to get in there. One of the things I love about digital is just get in there and set it up. When I first started 7 years ago, I sort of started with a lovely long story about me getting into business. When I made that decision that I was going to take the leap, I registered the ABN and I had the website done in 4 pages over a weekend. I had enough. I had an About Us page, I had a Contact Us page, I had a home page, and I listed my services. That was it. And then I could build on it. And incidentally, I started that website on Wix. And in 6 weeks, it was ranking number 1 on Google for what I wanted to be found for. And that kicked off my business traffic. And that's why I will say to anyone, don't get too caught up on whether it's Shopify or if it's Wix. Shopify, yes, if you're e-commerce, okay? I am going to say that one. I'd be remiss of not saying it. I'm a fan of it. But Wix do a great platform. WordPress, I've got a word. Don't you love it when your mouth and your brain don't connect?
One's quicker than the other. Yeah,
That's right. I'm so excited, and it happens all the time. Calm. I will say how important it is to not get overly caught up in the platform. Wix is very robust, does great SEO, has great tutorials. Shopify also has great tutorials. It has a free academy. You can use that too. WordPress, you can definitely find information. Just Google it. Seriously, there's a great community for WordPress out there too. If you are really not tech savvy in your e-commerce, that's why I'd lean you towards Shopify. If you're service-based, I'd probably go Wix. If you're getting support, then WordPress is definitely somewhere to go and play as well. Don't get too caught up in the platform. Just give it a red hot go. And when you start, you can always use the delete button and use an add button equally.
Yeah, like, I'm not a platform builder, someone's right shoe really. But when I first started this business, I started it, over the Christmas New Year period because of circumstances that had happened just before that. And I actually built my first website through lead pages on the back end of a WordPress store. And I had that website for about 18 months and I just continued to make, more pages as I needed them until my business was financial enough that I could go and get someone to build me a proper website. But it did me just fine. When I told people it was lead pages after I changed it, of course, people were like, my goodness, I would never have guessed. I'm like, no, you wouldn't have unless I told you. This is something that was what I knew to do. I knew how to do landing pages in lead pages. So that's where I went when I had to get my website. But I love how you talked about, just getting to do it because, one of my favorite sayings is, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the next best time? Today. Right now is the best time to plant the tree. And that's the best time to get online is now. Yes. Yep. If you had got on it, 5 years ago or 18 months ago, you might have reaped some rewards out of the pandemic. But today is just as good a day.
Well said. Well said. And I'm curious, how did you get your traffic with your website?
Using social and my podcast.
Love it.
Yep. Just innovative, I guess, a little bit different. I didn't expect to rank. And look, my keywords are social media and marketing in Australia. How on earth am I going to rank very quickly for those anyway? You can't find more competitive words except maybe accommodation, I reckon. But anyway, Sarina, this has been such a great chat. Thank you so much for lending us your wisdom around e-commerce and Shopify. If people want to get in contact, where is the best place?
Well, they can go to, I've got dotterised.com. And if you can think of dots, and so it's literally DOTTERISED.com.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Siri didn't like that spelling.
I'm sure you'll have it in the notes. I commonly get Siri. It's hilarious. My middle name is Dot, so you can also get me at sarina.ryan.com as well. That is where my original website is for me, the founder, and Dotterised is for the agency. And I have a very big passion of talking numbers, so you'll find a lot of content around that. So I really want people to see how they can grow their businesses through understanding their business numbers. So accountants out there, I love being able to talk numbers, which I know is probably a rare thing as a marketer. And, that's me.
Just a little bit. Sounds like a whole other episode at some stage where we talk business numbers. That sounds lovely. I will, of course, have those websites in the show notes, and I won't be able to edit out Siri, so she'll just have to stay in there as someone who butted in our conversation. But Sarina, this has been so good. So lovely to catch up with you again. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jen.
I hope you really enjoyed that podcast with e-com expert Serena. She had some great tips, didn't she? I would love to know which one hit home the most for you. What were you thinking? What did you write down and think, oh my gosh, I never thought about it like that, or I need to do that or look into that. So please come into the Like-Minded Business Owners Facebook group. If you're not a member, go there and click and join, and let's have a chat about what impact this podcast episode had on you and perhaps has on your business as well. Whenever I do my talks, like workshops and things like that, I have what we call a 72-hour rule, and I thought I might start implementing it here on the podcast as well. So basically, what are you going to do in the next 72 hours to move your business forward? So you've taken time out of your day to listen to this podcast episode, which is probably going to be winding up to be about 45 minutes or so. So you've taken time to do that. What are you going to do to move your business forward? Pick one thing, pick two things that you've heard on this podcast episode, implement them, move your business forward in the next 72 hours. Otherwise, you simply won't get it done because we are all very busy little humans. All right, guys, that is it for another episode of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. I will see you next week for episode 179. But in the meantime, if we aren't hanging out on social already, let's get social on social. Go and find me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, and let me cheer you on in your business journey as well. All right, take care, and remember, my small business peeps, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.